On today's podcast, I welcome Sylvia Green from Green's Flower Farm. Sylvia has 17 years of professional experience in horticulture industry, including floral design of 5 years. She says she loves pulling weeds in the gardens and attending to the small farm animals. She looks back on appreciating growing up on a game farm out in the country. They started with her future husband back in 2014 in their yard. We spoke about how she visits local farm markets, going to Tansy Hill and the winter market in Wausau. She's going to be selling some special things for Mother's Day this year, some hanging planters. Sylvia works with local florists and local bride and grooms to help them get their wedding flowers on track with over 200 different types of flowers and 200 different types of color palettes. I actually went out to the Green's Flower Farm to talk with Sylvia, and we sat in her big greenhouse, which is like a tunnel greenhouse. And we spoke about how the greenhouse was set up. And because it was a little bit earlier in the spring, there wasn't much growing, but she showed me a few of the flowers that were starting to bloom. I took a tour around the entire property, looked at the main greenhouse with her standing greenhouse and benched greenhouse. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. I would like to welcome Sylvia Green to the podcast of Green's Flower Farm. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool.
Yeah, we kind of took a little tour of the greenhouse that we're sitting in right now, showing me that one flower that was about to bloom. It's still early spring, so there's a whole lot of dirt that I'm looking at, but I'm visualizing a ton of flowers.
Yeah, in about a few weeks, we'll see a lot more color in here. But yes, it's a little bit early. Obviously, in Wisconsin, it's a little more challenging to grow cut flowers in our climate.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Like, it's just a tent, basically. But
Yep.
kind of explain to me what you were explaining to me before we started about why everything needs to be chest height.
Yeah, so right now we are in a high tunnel. So it's very similar to a greenhouse. A lot of people just call it a greenhouse. But the main difference between a high tunnel and a greenhouse, and the greenhouse behind us, there's benching. So in the high tunnel, everything's grown in ground. So it's a season extension. And because I start things earlier in the springtime and we don't know what's going to happen with the weather, hence like we're going to see about 10 inches of snow later this week, despite the beautiful weather we're enduring right now. We want to make sure that the cold air is more at chest height versus down to the ground where the plants are.
That makes sense.
Yep. So no dying of the plants. That's never fun.
Not good for business either.
No. Mother Nature can be quite sassy sometimes, so we need to be proactive.
What is your background a little bit? We were kind of talking, you do this not full time, but you're involved in this type of industry full time. What is your background? Did you go to school for this?
Actually, so I grew up out in the country on a game farm, and my family was just really big into gardening and landscaping and that kind of thing. So I give a lot of credit to both my parents. I actually been doing cut flowers. I was thinking about it this morning going, wow, over 20 years. I started when I was in high school, and did it through college, and worked for a local flower shop here in town for quite a few years, and did landscaping, garden center management, now work for a soil company. So it works out well, kind of just well networked within the industry. So I really enjoy it.
There, with the wedding industry, there's shows like bridal shows. Do you go to bridal shows? Do you do anything like that? Is there anything in your type of industry that you would go to?
Yeah, I don't do any bridal shows at this time. I am excited. I do a couple of different things. So Tansy Hill Farm is one of the local wedding venues that's by me. I do her barn bazaar. So I sell some of the fresh cut flowers there and some of the different plant starts and whatnot that I have. This year as well, the Wausau Winter Market is going to be having a gardening day coming up. Cool. So I'll be there with a few things as well. So that'll be exciting.
Awesome. So do you sell at the farmer's market?
I don't.
No.
So I just unfortunately don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm normally out here kind of playing in the dirt. And my husband and I both try to do that work-life balance. So it's really challenging.
I know that for a fact. There really isn't a work-life balance in my industry. I put the kids to bed and then I go edit for the rest of the night.
Yep, exactly. So, and we both love to be outside and we love to camp and we love to fish. Yeah. And so we, between the weddings that we have, we try to still get up to our camper up in the Northwoods of Michigan.
That's cool.
So
Michigan, Upper Michigan. Awesome. So I'm looking at a book that you have in front of me. Who took the photos for these? Did you take them?
I did most of them. Some of them are from some of the photographers from the weddings and whatnot I had done. This is just a cute little book my mom actually gifted to me as a gift, just so I have something to show people if they have questions. You know, back in the day, again, when I used to work at the floral shop with wedding work, we'd sit there and flip through book after book and pages and pages. And now we just look at Pinterest. So it's nice to have a book, but otherwise, we just do everything online now.
So how much land do you have that you were kind of describing to me? You rent a few acres. What goes into the plots outside of the greenhouse?
Sure. So we own officially 3/4 of an acre here on our property, but we rent the field that butts up to our property, which is super fantastic because we literally can walk out the door and water things and forgive the cat. She's very friendly. This is Bryn.
If I start sneezing, that's okay.
Okay. She loves attention, so she might try to climb up and cuddle with you. But so it's nice that, our field is so close to us. A lot of other flower farms that are out there are having to drive miles away. So it's hard with watering and maintaining things. And so it's pretty handy.
So obviously you can hear the cars going by. We're out in the middle of the country. Let's move on to, do you do any like sort of specials for Mother's Day? I know I always think of Mother's Day because my wife, we go to a greenhouse to get those hanging plants.
Yep, hanging baskets.
Hanging baskets. And do you do anything like that?
So actually, this will be the first year that we are growing some hanging baskets. My husband just desperately wanted to grow our own, so we have them in the greenhouse. So we started them a few weeks ago, and they should be flushed out perfectly in time for Mother's Day. Which we may be selling again at the Wausau Winter Market Garden Day or at the Tansy Hill Barn Bazaar.
Awesome.
But otherwise, normally, because of Mother Nature, things aren't typically blooming quite in time for Mother's Day being the first or second weekend in May. But this year, we are trying ranunculus and anemones, and I'm so excited. They're absolutely gorgeous, and they should be perfectly in bloom in time for Mother's Day. So, Great. I'm excited.
So if I wanted to grow my own arrangements, what do you suggest me planting in my backyard?
I would say first question would be, when is your wedding? Because I seen somebody the other day on one of the social media platforms that said she wanted to grow her own wedding flowers, and her wedding wasn't until like third week in October. There's a lot of risk in October because, I think last year we had frost in the end of September. So you really need to be cautious and make sure that you know what you're growing, when your wedding is, what's frost tolerant, what's not, and obviously the time frame that it's blooming. There are some really easy things that can be grown, but it just kind of depends again, if they're going to be in bloom at the time of your wedding.
Okay. Do you work directly with brides?
I do. So I would consider myself a farmer florist. Again, I've been doing florist work for a little over 20 years now. But my main thing is growing. I love to have my hands in the dirt and be outside.
Talk me through your process that you would do if I were to contact you on doing florals for my wedding.
Sure. So a lot of gals will reach out to me either via Facebook or from my website. And the first thing I would do is send them a wedding consult form. Basically, it's just general information. How many couples? What's your theme? What's your wedding venue? Do you have a photographer picked out? All of kind of that fun stuff. And then once they have that filled out, then I'll try to set up a meeting with them to kind of go over everything, just to get a better understanding of what they're looking for.
What are some of your packages that you offer? Pricing plans? Do you do full day coverage? Anything like that?
So I don't have any particular packages that I do. I do prefer to work with the couples and their budget. So it's kind of nice with that. So yes, I can do a full design quote for folks, but a lot of those that are a little more cost conscious, that kind of thing, I offer what's called DIY buckets. So the couples can just let me know, what their color palette is and kind of give me a rough idea of what their plans are. Again, how many couples, table arrangements, that kind of thing. And I can kind of give them a rough idea of how many buckets that they would need to do their own wedding work. So,
what is it? DIY buckets? Explain.
So do it yourself. So do it
okay.
yourself buckets. So it's depending on the type of flowers and whatnot. But
they do the arrangement then.
correct.
And okay, gotcha.
Yep. So I'm just off. So a lot of
gotcha.
Yep. A lot of couples are looking to get, flowers from the local farmers market and that kind of thing. So this gives them an opportunity to kind of get things at more of a wholesale type rate.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But have the color scheme that they're wanting. So when you go to the farmers market, you may have a, beautiful blush pink, dusty blue wedding party and all they have is sunflowers.
Yeah.
So if you reach out to me ahead of time, I can say, okay, yep, I can meet those demands and,
awesome.
Get you the buckets. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. So you don't really have a starting price then. It's just whatever, a la carte. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
One thing I can say, with working with couples, a lot of times, obviously everybody's got a budget or they're not sure what their budget should be. The one thing that I've kind of noticed over the last few years is that people should realize, having a lot of friends is fabulous and having a big wedding party is fabulous. However, the bigger the wedding party, the higher the costs are going to be.
It's going to get expensive.
Yeah. So, just totally generally speaking, depending on what you're looking for, a lot of times, when every couple that you add, you're going to be adding roughly $100 cost, plus the gift, plus this, plus, plus, unfortunately. So when thinking about, planning your wedding, I always recommend, kind of take a look at how many people, what your budget is.
Do you do any sort of preservation service? Like, I know a lot of brides will have their bouquet and they'll want it preserved somehow. And I've thought about it, but I really don't know any of the details. And do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So actually I can dry your flowers and actually repurpose them for like wreaths and that kind of thing that you can put in the house.
Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah.
What is the drying process? Do you use the greenhouse? How does that work?
It really depends on the flower. Each flower is very specific as far as in certain flowers, I should take a step back, can't be dried. So it really just kind of depends on each one have different criteria for drying.
Awesome. Is there any like venues you won't work in? Like, have you ever met a place that won't allow your flowers?
No.
No.
Yeah,
it's usually pretty standard, but just wondering, how far do you travel? Like all across Wisconsin, or do you try to stay local?
Yep, actually, so I would travel all over Wisconsin. I obviously mentioned that we love to go to the UP.
Yeah.
So we have done a couple of weddings up in Upper Michigan, which is super exciting. Again, it's a excuse to kind of get up to the camper and have some fun at the same time and do the wedding work. So haven't traveled south a whole lot to that Milwaukee-Madison area, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. But again, my goal is to grow the flowers.
Awesome. If people were to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? You said Facebook and your website. Do you do Pinterest? Do you do anything like that?
I would say the best way to get a hold of me is via email. So it's always nice to be able to look back at the previous conversations that have been had and so forth.
So what email can they reach you at, and what's your website? So
my website is greensflowerfarm.com. And my email address is giveitagreentouch@gmail.com.
Awesome. Anything else that you would like to plug? Or I know you said you were going to those 2 shows, but anything else that you can think of?
I appreciate that, couples nowadays are trying to support more locally grown flowers, and a lot of the florists here in the Wausau area have been outstanding to work with. Yes, I do wedding work, but again, my goal is to grow the flowers. So I really appreciate all the florists out there that want to support local. So thank you.